All right, hey VC, I'm Jamie. Welcome back. We are back with another video. I'm back with vinyl finds, and I do apologize for the considerable stack of vinyl I'm going to be showing on this one. Again, these records were picked up not in one go. This is over the past several months. It's been a while since my last video. So this was picked up at various record stores, online, that sort of thing. And so let's get right to it. I won't spend too much time on each record, but right off the bat, yeah, I did pick up the Tragically Hip. I'm surprised this wasn't a record store day release. Probably a good thing that it wasn't, but big news, the Tragically Hip, and this is the album Saskadelphia. I do love the title. Apparently they had originally wanted to call their album Road Apples this, but the record company wasn't too big on that idea. So these are leftover and fairly recently discovered songs left over from the album Road Apples. It was originally thought that these songs had been lost in that Universal music fire, but thankfully they were not. So they put this album out. It's not a full-length album. It's a bit more of an EP. Came in its own bag, which is quite nice. And just so nice to hear Tragically Hip once again. It also contains a live version of the track of Montreal. And a nice inner sleeve. And just so nice to hear Tragically Hip at any time, for sure. Okay, here's some memories sort of from my childhood. A friend of mine had this album that we used to listen to, Medicine Ball Caravan. This is a movie. The movie, I've never seen it, is described as kind of a Woodstock, a sort of a traveling Woodstock, if you will. And the idea is that there would be this caravan of different performances across the United States that is mainly featuring Warner Brothers artists. But take a look at the lineup there. You've got Alice Cooper, B.B. King, the Youngbloods, Delaney and Bonnie, and an area band, a West Coast area band called Stone Ground is also featured on here. So it's kind of a Woodstock on wheels, I think is how it was promoted. Came out in 1970, filmed in 1970, came out in 1971, but the soundtrack lives on. As I say, I've never seen the film, but great live performances on here for sure. So a friend of mine used to have this. He's moved out west. I never thought I'd come across it, so that brought back some good memories for sure. Okay, how about some early Robert Palmer? This is his third album, I believe. Some people can do what they like, and Robert Palmer seems to be having a game of poker without money while the cab waits nearby. This contains the track the hit Man Smart Woman Smarter, and drummers on here feature Richie Hayward from Little Feat and Jeff Porcaro, who would later go on to drum with Toto. And so, yeah, some early Robert Palmer there. Okay, Dave Mason. I'm a big fan of Dave Mason. Love his stuff from the 70s, and great musician, singer. And this is the album Two Hearts. So this is Dave Mason getting into the 80s. This came out in 87. Not a great album. You're starting to get into that Dave Mason trying to do that hip 80s sound at the time. Although some featured artists on here. Steve Winwood is featured on here. Also, Phoebe Snow is featured on back vocals, and also a duet vocal performance with Phoebe Snow. Now, initially, this looks like a Dave Mason autograph. I don't think it is. It says to Andrea, Dave, but that doesn't look like Mason. That looks like Rossa or Rosso, something like that. So I can imagine it's a Dave Mason autograph, and this was in fact sealed. But enjoyable, but not the best Dave Mason album. I wouldn't start there if you're checking out that artist. George Thorogood. Enjoyed this album. Picked this one up, George Thorogood and Born to Be Bad. Of course, a number of George Thorogood covers on here, like You Can't Catch Me and I'm Ready, but just always refreshing, just fun, and just great bluesy rock with George Thorogood. And enjoyed that album for sure. Okay, Frank Sinatra. This is a Frank Sinatra Capitol Pickwick series release, so this is a budget. Frank Sinatra, Try a Little Tenderness. Interesting though, even though it's a Pickwick series on Capitol, still has the sort of the rainbow label. Again, it's Capitol years, Frank Sinatra, always fun to listen to. Stampeter's album, Canadian West band in terms of Alberta, and a great country rock band, had the hit Sweet City Woman. Didn't even know this album existed. This is Stampeter's and the album Ballsy from 1979. Now by this time, Rich Dotson and Kim Burley left the band, so it was down to Ronnie King and some other members. Now you would think for maybe a later band release that particularly with this band, that they might go more country. This one is rocking still, so really rocking. If you put it on, didn't know it was the Stampeders, and there's Ronnie King there. It used to be the original trio, but now some extra members here. If you didn't know it was the Stampeders, you'd be thinking, hey, this is great. It's pretty good rocking stuff here. Enjoyable, for sure. Stampeders from 1979 and the album Ballsy. Okay, always enjoy picking up Ry Cooder albums, another Ry Cooder soundtrack, of which there are many, and this is the soundtrack to the film The Border, another film I have never seen, featuring Jack Nicholson. Nice variety of music, some vocals on here, some country rock, even some sort of Zydeco sounds going on, but can't go wrong with Ry Cooder for sure. Okay, finally have Caravan on vinyl. Not the best copy in terms of the cover. It's got a little bit of a mark there, but of course this is the album Cunning Stunts. Be careful how you say that, and featuring another great Hypnosis cover. Hypnosis did covers for Pink Floyd and many bands, but another great Caravan album. Finally have some on vinyl. Have a fair bit of Caravan on CD, and there's a massive Caravan CD box set that's coming out too. And didn't have the debut from Kansas, and now I do. So this is Kansas' first album, and this painting, this mural, this is only a part of it. The full mural is on display at the Kansas State Building, and of course this is the shades of things to come with the prog rock stylings of Kansas. And I do believe that this was two bands that came together and then formed the band Kansas. Okay, and speaking of Caravan on vinyl, have some Gong on vinyl. I was thrilled to come across this one. This is one of my favorite Gong albums. I believe it's pronounced Shamal, but I could be wrong. Gong, great musicianship, just great album, Gong. So happy to come across that one. Seem to come across lots of Focus albums, which is great because I do like Focus. This one's a little different. I remember Roberts on my turntable showed this one just recently. Focus and Mother, or Mother Focus, however you want to call this album. Usually Focus has really kind of proggy sounds. This album, they really kind of switched gears and went a little bit more funky. Still a great album, but a little different for Focus. It was a little different to listen to, so I wasn't quite expecting that. This was kind of a blind buy. This is a band called Tattoo, and this is a DJ copy, not for sale. Sort of a rockin' band with pretty good harmonies, vocals, kind of Raspberries light, and one of the band members was from the Raspberries initially. I believe Wally Bryce on guitar and vocals was from the Raspberries and is featured here. I think this is the only album that they put out, but nice. Check it out. I don't know if it's available online or not. Dr. Hook, picked up Dr. Hook Rising. Okay, this is kind of a forgettable Dr. Hook album. I think Dr. Hook and the Medicine Show, their earlier albums from the 70s, are much more interesting, if you will. And this came out 1980 on Casablanca Polygram. Nice cover though. Rising. Okay, a great artist, Chris Rea, and this is Whatever Happened to Benny Santini, and this features the track Fool If You Think It's Over, which is really an underrated song. That is a great pop song, Chris Rea, Fool If You Think It's Over, and always happy to pick up Chris Rea. A great band, Rotary Connection. I don't often come across Rotary Connection albums, and they're one of those bands that kind of gets maybe sometimes overlooked, not realizing the great sort of psych soul that they do. And this is on the Cadet Concept label, Rotary Connection, simply called Songs. But check out some of the covers that they do. I mean, Respect, a couple of Cream songs, also Salt of the Earth. So good. So good. But as I say, I rarely come across Rotary Connection albums. Okay, Canadian band from the West Coast. This is the band Idolize. Had some radio hits in the 80s. Tokyo Rose, good vocalist, good sort of pop rock sound. This was their third album. Not a lot of big hits on this one. The album's called Love's Imperfection. And I think the only notable track on here that got some airplay is In Your Room. And I think after this, the label dropped them. They still released recordings after this. But yeah, Idolize, a band worth checking out, a Canadian West Coast band, if you haven't checked them out already. Okay, Tears for Fears. I don't want to say they're making a comeback, but it seems interest in Tears for Fears has been renewed. I know that Massey Hall Live from Record Store Day did quite well. This is, of course, Tears for Fears, Great cover, and The Seeds of Love. And it's a great title track, and the track Women in Chains is just amazing. So I was happy to come across this on vinyl. And the band Talk Talk. Everybody loves Talk Talk. It's My Life. I believe this is the North American version. There's a longer version of It's My Life on here. It's about 6 minutes or so, but it doesn't feel like it's an extended dance track, so that's a good thing. But always enjoy Talk Talk, and always enjoy Alvin Lee. How many Alvin Lee albums are there between 10 Years After and his solo stuff's unbelievable. 10 years later, as described on this, Alvin Lee, and this is the album Rocket Fuel, and as you can see, it's burning, raring to go, and it's a great Alvin Lee rockin' stuff from start to finish. Another fun record to listen to, Alvin Lee. Okay, Cat Stevens. I'm surprised I didn't have this on vinyl, but I did pick up Cat Stevens and Buddha and the Chocolate Box. And of course, this contains the song Oh Very Young. Wonderful graphics on this one, nice gatefold. So there's that, and then it opens up like that. And then it's got quite a nice inner sleeve on this one as well. Take a quick look at it. Always enjoy the titles for Cat Stevens albums, but there you go. And this, of course, simply on, and even the, yeah, it's even got the label, custom label there. So on A&M Records, of course, Cat Stevens, and there are a couple of Cat Stevens box sets, vinyl and CD box sets that are available. The T for the Tillerman one looks really nice. Okay, picking up some funky soul. How about BT Express? Love this band, and this is a band really I've kind of discovered on vinyl. This is the album Nonstop and Shout It Out. Can't go wrong with BT Express. Really enjoy this stuff. And usually you can find them fairly inexpensively too. A Canadian artist who's generally more noted for backing vocals on a number of albums. This is the artist Lisa Del Bello and her album Pretty Girls, featuring the title track, which was a sizable enough radio pop hit back in the day. I want to say this is the late 70s, 1978 is when this came out, but Lisa Del Bello. Okay, and the best of the Runaways. Can't get enough of the Runaways. This is certainly a later issue or a recent issue on Mercury, and of course it features Cherry Bomb and all your favorites. The Runaways, best of the Runaways. And there you go. Okay, Steel Eye Span. This is Storm Force 10. I really do enjoy this band. Boy, they do have a number of albums out, but another great one. This unfortunately did not come with the original inner sleeve, but nice to listen to. And Al Stewart. You can find Al Stewart albums generally like super cheap, and I like Al Stewart. Al Stewart and Modern Times, and this album came out, I want to say, mid-70s, 1975, and produced by Alan Parsons. Okay, Clarence Clemons. How about that? This is the album Hero. Of course, sadly missed the late great saxophone player for the E Street Band with Bruce Springsteen, Clarence Clemons. This is the album Hero, and this features the track You're a Friend of Mine duet with Jackson Browne, and that really kind of sets the tone of the template. It's just a fun album. It's an 80s sound, but in a good way, shall we say. Just fun. This came out in 1985 on CBS. Clarence Clemons. Okay, switching gears, how about Lena Lovitch? If I'm pronouncing her name correctly, I always feel I'm not pronouncing her name correctly, but it's Lena Lovitch. Early stuff with Flex. I guess Lena Lovitch went from sort of that kind of new wave sound, and then she went later to a sort of a dance sound. I'm kind of just discovering this artist, and usually you can find her albums, again, fairly inexpensively, maybe not to everyone's taste, but the album Flex. Joan Armatrading. Always been a big fan of Joan Armatrading, and I've come across some Joan Armatrading vinyl recently, which is good, including this one. This is Track Record, the best of Joan Armatrading. Nice big hype sticker still in the shrink for this one. She's just got an amazing voice, just her vocal quality incredible, and just wonderful songs as well. Great presentation. Okay, here's a thrift store buy. How about Starland Vocal Band? And yes, of course, it contains the hit Afternoon Delight. Interesting that this was kind of an ABBA type band. It was two couples, this married couple and then this couple that would later marry. But this is an enjoyable album. Nice harmonies, obviously, with Afternoon Delight, but they also do a cover of American Tune, the Paul Simon song. So Starland Vocal Band. Okay, from that we go to Acapella Sounds of the Nylons, Canadian band. This is their album Seamless. I did pick this up at a thrift store. Their third album that's maybe not as good as the first two, or after this album, that's when they had the more international hit of their cover of the Turtles' Happy Together. Again, it's pretty much covers through like Remember Walking in the Stand, This Boy, and Stepping Stone. And I do love when the Nylon albums come with the warning, or the heading, this album contains vocals and percussion only. So just so you know. All right, so there you go on that. Okay, this is the album America. I do like early America, as opposed to when they were kind of getting into the 80s, kind of changing their sound. And this is the album Hideaway. Of course, the Beatles connection is that the band was produced by George Martin. And this one also contained the original inner sleeve and inner poster. Now, it's not gatefold, but it's got quite a massive poster inside here. So here's the album. Like that. Cover's not in bad condition. And the sleeve. And then quite a nice big poster on this one. And a double-sided poster, which you don't often get. So there you have the focus on the three main members of America. And there you have. And it's really nice quality paper, too. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this all in, but we'll get an indication there like that. And like that. Okay. And America and Hideaway. Okay, this was kind of a blind buy. It's got kind of a Dixieland sound, but not bad. Red Allen plays King Oliver. Red Allen, obviously a trumpeter. I don't really know a lot about this artist, but yeah, this was fun to listen to. I did enjoy this. Again, with blind buys, you just never know. But it had kind of good look to it, so I thought, I'll pick that up for sure. Stanley Jordan. This is Stanley Jordan and the album Magic Touch, the amazing guitarist that he is on Blue Note. And I do love the warning, and it's written here as a warning. I'll read it to you. The warning, do not be deceived. Despite what your ears might tell you, there is only one guitarist on this album, and there are no guitar overdubs whatsoever. This may be somewhat difficult to grasp upon first hearing, since there are clearly separate and independent guitar lines on the 9 cuts herein. Now that is a great warning and a great album. Stanley Jordan, you know, amazing guitarist. And how old was he? Like something like 19. He was pretty young when this album came out, for sure. Okay, this is Elton John. I didn't have this on vinyl. Elton John and Reg Strikes Back. Unfortunately, it's got a mark on the cover there. Now, with this cover, at the time, Elton John was kind of clearing house, if you will. He was putting a lot of his merchandise or his clothes and costumes on the auction block, kind of just, you know, clearing things out. So hence all of this stuff on the cover. Interesting, now with getting into the 80s, you're starting to get the idea of obviously CDs coming out, and this is a digital recording. So I guess it's a digital to vinyl, but this contains the big hit "I Don't Want to Go On With You Like That," which is a good tune. So Elton John there. Okay, something a little different. How about Cass Elliot? One of her last albums, and Don't Call Me Mama Anymore, which the title is interesting, and it says it's recreating selected highlights from her CBS television specials. So I think these were featured in the special, but re-recorded so they would sound a little bit better on album, because a lot of times when they take TV show soundtracks directly, especially in the early days, they did not sound great. But she was kind of changing direction at this time, was doing sort of more ballads or torch songs, if you will. I don't know if it was the right move, but of course we would lose Cass Elliot not too long after this was released. This came out in 1973, so the late great Cass Elliot. Don't Call Me Mama Anymore. I was almost going to say Mama Cass Elliot, but there you have it. Okay, I initially saw this featured on Derek Higgins' YouTube channel. It goes by Derek Vaughn, and he talked about how he enjoyed this album. I mean, it's not a great album, but this is a band called Joyful Noise, and that's joyful with 2 L's, and this is really kind of psych pop. But, you know, Derek gave it a recommendation. He says, you know, they're not the best players, but you can just kind of hear that enthusiasm. And, yeah, I think this was the only album that they put out, and a little bit of a scratch or mark there, but on RCA Victor. But, yeah, Joyful Noise. Who doesn't love Albert Collins, ice picking? Enough said. Just love his guitar attack. Albert Collins on Alligator. Absolutely wonderful. From 1978. Oh, so good. So good. Okay, how about switching gears? Maybe something for Slambo. How about the best of Bob Newhart? Picked this up at a thrift store. It's not in the best of condition, which sadly sometimes with comedy records, especially if you pick them up at thrift stores, they're often pretty trash. This one's not too bad, but not in the best of condition, but just featuring his wonderful routines. With a lot of these kind of telephone routines, but Bob Newhart. Great stuff. And when I picked that up, I also picked up a Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass and What Now My Love. I don't mind Herb Alpert. So thought on A&M, thought I'd pick that up. And I did pick this up. I enjoy movie soundtracks or soundtracks to musicals. You know, I'm not huge into them, but I picked this up purely because it's featured on Pink Floyd's Umaguma, and of course talking about the classic Gigi soundtrack. So this is the one where, if you know the Pink Floyd album cover, it's where David Gilmour's sitting down and this album is beside him. Now often you see it as just this kind of white square, because I think there were some copyright issues, so for a while it was just a white square. Initially this was the album, but then I think now they've put this back in place, sort of thing. And in terms of a movie soundtrack, it's, you know, it's fun to listen to. But I think I'll definitely have to take a picture of myself in a chair with this Gigi album in the background there. Okay, how about Boomtown Rats? And there's Sir Bob Geldof there. And this is Bob Geldof and the Boomtown Rats in The Long Grass. Includes Rain, Drag Me Down Tonight, and A Hold of Me. And I probably shouldn't call him Sir Bob Geldof. He probably wouldn't like that title necessarily. The Boomtown Rats in The Long Grass, and this contains the original price sticker from Cheapy's warehouse store. Sale $6.99 is cheaper at Cheapy's. There you go, Boomtown Rats. Okay, a little bit more harmonica stylings of Mr. Lee Oskar and My Road, Our Road, as I'm trying to get into Lee Oskar solo albums. Not too bad. Another Canadian artist got a special place for Corey Hart, and this is First Offense, and this contains the massive hit that still gets radio play, Sunglasses at Night. Corey Hart and First Offense. Finally got a hold of a Randy Newman record. I don't have any Randy Newman on vinyl except for this one that I just picked up, and interesting place to start. Randy Newman and Good Old Boys featuring Rednecks, Birmingham. Wow, Randy Newman, what an amazing solo artist, especially, you know, his early stuff. An amazing artist. And of course, Randy Newman now does a lot of the soundtracks for the Pixar films. I don't know if he's still doing the Pixar soundtracks, maybe not as much as he was for a bit there, but Randy Newman and Good Old Boys. So, yeah, as I said, don't come across Randy Newman albums too much. Jefferson Airplane and the album Bark. This is missing a few things. It's got, I'll show you what it does have. So there's that, and I'm not sure if there was some other wraparound around the cover on this as well, and this is missing some of the booklet that is included, but it does include this insert, so at least got a little something. It's amazing for a Jefferson Airplane. They would have so many goodies, very creative packaging for this band, but there you have that, and yeah, the album Bark. Ravi Shankar, like picking up Ravi Shankar albums, and picked this one up fairly cheaply. This is the second album of what was like a 2-album release. I don't know if it was released then as a double album, but this is Ravi Shankar, and this artist, I'm not going to be able to pronounce this artist's name, but it is described as West Meets East, album 2 on Angel. I think there's some various covers on this, but thoroughly enjoyed listening to this, Ravi Shankar. And again, I don't come across Ravi Shankar albums too often, and when I do, they tend to be quite a little bit on the expensive side. Okay, how many Black Oak albums are there? Black Oak, Arkansas. This is Black Oak, Arkansas, and Ranch and Roll Live. And as you can see, it is in your face. Now this, I believe, is a later issue because this is not a gatefold, but boy, this is just loud. It's Black Oak, Arkansas. Rockin' and rollin' and live. So there you go. Okay, Canadian band that I've certainly featured and talked about. A great Canadian 80s band, late 70s, 80s band that is worth exploring, especially if you like a good sort of pop / dance, sort of electronic kind of sound, is Martha and the Muffins, or M+M. And this is their album Dance Park, which was engineered by Daniel Lanois. And in fact, I believe it's Daniel Lanois' sister, Jocelyn, who is part of the band. So Martha and the Muffins, M+M. Worth checking out for sure. Okay, this is a Columbia compilation called Bebop, and it's simply called They All Played Bebop. And this, as I mentioned, is a double album set. This came out in the, I was going to say the 70s, but I think actually it's an early 80s release, featuring artists such as Al Haig, Jimmy Rolls, Duke Jordan, and Tommy Flanagan, to name a few. All right, here is an obscure, I would think fairly obscure, movie soundtrack. The sequel to the Rocky Horror Picture Show. This is Shock Treatment. Now, this film actually I've seen, which is odd because this is a hard film to come across. This was the sort of the sequel to Rocky Horror. At least the characters Brad and Janet are also featured on this one. Of course, there's different actors on this one. And I remember they showed this back in my college days with the Rocky Horror Show. So they showed it was a nice idea. They showed the Rocky Horror Picture Show first and then this film. But by the first 10 minutes, 15 minutes, people were just walking out because it's just not great. It just hasn't got, even the music is not as good. It's just not as fun as the Rocky Horror Picture Show. But there are a few good tracks on here. But when I came across this, I thought, no, I'm going to have to snag this. And I do remember when this came out, I had a friend who really enjoyed it, but I was kind of so-so on it. But talk about obscure, fairly obscure movie soundtracks. And that is Richard O'Brien, who's the creator. He was Riff Raff in the first movie, and he plays some sort of doctor in this one. Of course, Richard O'Brien continuing to do okay with the Rocky Horror Show, the play, for sure. And John Mayall continuing to do okay, and this is a later release called Bottom Line, and this was released in Canada on GTR. In terms of, I mean, John Mayall's got so much material available, so many albums. This one's okay, and I'm trying to get a year on this, 1979. This one's okay, but you know, he's got so many albums out. Keith Emerson's soundtrack stuff. This is a soundtrack to the film Nighthawks, and I did enjoy this album. I don't have too much Keith Emerson soundtrack stuff. I know he did some soundtracks, maybe not as many as he would have liked to, but and this is reportedly mastered at half speed. Good sound, and yeah, Keith Emerson and the soundtrack to the film Nighthawks. Now, did this film star Sylvester Stallone? Billy Dee Williams is featured on this one, and I'm wondering if Sylvester Stallone was featured on here as well. There you go. But it doesn't say. It just says starring Billy Dee Williams, Lindsay Wagner. There you go. So, hey, another film I haven't seen. I have the soundtracks, but I haven't seen the films. Okay, we've got Pete Townshend and Scoop. I do have Scoop on CD as the fairly recent reissues of Scoop. This is basically a lot of Pete Townshend demo stuff, kind of before the Who were getting into the box sets sort of thing, where they would really feature a lot of the Pete Townshend demos. So this was kind of that first collection of kind of rare Who stuff or Pete Townshend stuff. So this was a special one to pick up. Nice double album set from Pete Townshend. Here's a band I don't know quite what I think of. I distinctly remember this when it was first released, just that cover, how they kind of look like, I don't know, it's like, you know, the Mods or the Jam or John Lennon, but this is the band, the Corgis. You'd think they'd have a little bit more of a rougher or more of a new wave punk kind of sound, but they really do seem to kind of lean towards pop. And this came out, you know, just at that right time on London Records. I want to say, you know, late 70s, maybe early 80s for this one. I could be wrong on this one. And this, I guess, was originally at Woolco. You could have picked up 4 for $5. But the Corgis, but a great cover nonetheless. Enjoying Tom Robinson. I picked up a few Tom Robinson albums, and this is Hope and Glory. But a great artist, very interesting artist. And another great artist is David Bromberg, often now featured in the VC. I see a lot of people picking up David Bromberg albums, and there's good reason, because the music is just so interesting. He's got a bit of a, sort of tongue-in-cheek and of humor and comedy in the album, but a multi-instrumentalist and just a nice variety of music as well. So David Bromberg, this is My Own House. Okay. And picking up Utopia, and this one was in the Shrink, and it's got this weird kind of black mark, but I do believe that is just on the Shrink. And Utopia, outstanding in their field, of course, with Todd Rundgren, very much of a Beatlesque inspired album. Many nods to the Beatles, but this is a later Rhino reissue. This came out initially in 1980 on Bearsville, but as you can see here, it is a Rhino reissue. And I think we just got 2 more records, a little bit more prog from Manfred Mann's Earth Band. Here's another band I really had no idea there were so many Manfred Mann Earth Band albums, and another great one with Watch. And I really like Manfred Mann's Earth Band. I mean, I like Manfred Mann, but man, the Earth Band, it's just great prog rock, or that proggy kind of sound on this one. And it's interesting on this one, though, they do a version of the early Manfred Mann, Quinn the Eskimo, the Mighty Quinn. And speaking of proggy sounds, last but certainly not least, how about Procol Harum and Broken Barricades? And this is the nice, whatever you call it, the sort of the die-cut sleeve there that sort of opens up like that. Love Procol Harum, and just a great band. And of course on the great A&M Records, for sure. Okay, that is going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for dropping by. Hopefully everybody's doing well, and we'll chat again soon. Take care, and bye-bye.